Hey, 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 good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Monique with another episode of the Ladypreneurs on Fire. I think something went wrong. No, it's all good. With another episode 40 of the Freedom Seekers Alive TV. And I have a guest today. I just met her, and I must say she is really lovely. So I'm really excited about what she's going to talk about as her being an entrepreneur, her side of this entrepreneurship. She is from Canada, Alberta. She's married and she has 3 grown children. Her hobbies are gardening and walking her dog and listening to Audible, exactly what I love too. So that is really fun. She gets the best out of women, so they become kingdom women speakers. So I want to know all about that. I'm going to introduce you to her. Here she is, Lisa Vanderkwaak. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Monique. So good to be here.
Nice to have you here. So I'm really excited because you do something that I have not seen yet in the entrepreneurship. You are talking about creating good speakers, but I'm curious. We are going to talk about it later. But one of my questions will be a speaker on stage or a speaker in general. So that is something that I really would like to have answered. But first, tell us a little bit about Lisa. Who is Lisa?
Well, thank you, Monique. And first of all, I say you pronounce my name perfectly.
Yeah, I
Because
think it's a Dutch name, so from a park.
yes, I
That's
know.
why.
So, well, you know what? I started out deathly afraid of speaking. Let me put that in there right then. As a young child, I grew up in an atmosphere which is very fear-based. And so I actually believed, and I didn't realize this until much later in my 20s, but I believed that it wasn't safe to speak. And so
Okay.
when I started in my career as a speech language pathologist, I went into university, became a speech language pathologist, a background in linguistics, and I found myself being pushed into opportunities I had to do presentations, but I
Okay.
was so afraid, even in a small group setting, to talk.
Okay.
My mind would be like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. All of these thoughts. And eventually I got married to a pastor, and we both were in campus ministry as I was working as a speech pathologist. And I started helping on a volunteer basis with the ministry, and found myself just mentoring young women who are at university, helping them to become personal and spiritually developed. And again, my husband started to push me into places, push me in the sense of gently
Well,
encourage me, hey, you need to speak more, you need to do. And I'd find myself in these situations where I was like paralyzed. And
mhm.
I'm like, why? Because I had such a desire to impact the lives of the people there, but I just couldn't. It's like I was frozen. And it
May I
wasn't.
ask you a few questions
Yes,
before we go further? Because there's
absolutely.
you were afraid of speaking in front of other people. Did you ever find out where that came from? And is that a reason that you became a speech pathologist? Is a speech pathologist somebody who helps people who have difficulties speaking, or who pronounce? How do you say that? A logopedist is a Dutch word. Is that
Delayed. Yeah, they have speech impediments or things
okay?
like that. Yeah. So no, the reason why I became a speech pathologist is I loved the sciences, and I love languages growing up in school, and I thought, I really love these. And when I went to university, I started out, I wanted to be a translator, French and English. And
Mhm.
then I had a professor come into one of our classrooms, and he talked about speech language pathology, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And to me, it was like the perfect marriage between language and science, because it is working, whether it be people who have head injuries and then now they have to relearn how to speak or communicate in different ways other than verbal, or just naturally occurring speech developments for normal developing children who have delays. So there's a
Okay.
wide spectrum or that you would work with. So that's kind of where I went in my university. First, I took linguistics, and then I went into speech pathology. But yes, in answer to your question, I did discover where that fear came from, because one time I was standing in a room filled with young students, and my husband had just finished speaking it, and spontaneously he turns to me and said, "Lisa, why don't you say a few words?" And I froze, and I'm like, what is going on here? And in that moment, the I was reminded of a time in my life when I was a 7-year-old little girl standing at the foot of a hospital bed, looking at this woman whose face was so badly bruised and swollen that she was unrecognizable until she spoke. And then I knew it was my mom.
Oh
And
my.
you see, my dad was an alcoholic, and he used to beat my mom when she spoke. And so
Oh,
in that moment, as a young girl, I made the conclusion, it's not safe to speak.
oh my God.
And so I realized in that moment, fast forward now into my 20s, when I was standing in front of those young people, I realized, wow, I need help. It's like, I need help. And as a faith-based person, as a Christian, I began to, seek help from people from a spiritual point of view, and to get rid of the fears that I had, but also to heal and to recognize what is truth. And then I began to get coached by other people who would help me actually in the skill development.
Mhm.
And so a combination of those, because I knew that I was called to speak, but I
Mhm.
felt held back, and I didn't
Yeah.
know how to overcome that hurdle. So I had to get help to do that. And that's kind of how it went.
Wow, what a story. I didn't know about that. How did you heal? How did you overcome that?
Overcome. Well, perception is reality, right? And so as a little girl, I didn't know I was perceiving something, and I made a conclusion that, right or wrong, of the situation that was going on, I took it as a personal, now it's not safe for me to speak. When I was in a situation where it was perfectly safe for me to speak, although my perception and my belief system was blocking me. So I had to recognize the belief system that I was living by that was actually hindering me from going forward. So I
Mhm.
had to learn, first of all, truth. I had to forgive,
Mhm.
forgive my dad, all those things that I had started to do. But then I had to say, you know what? This is not true. I may have believed that, and that might have been something that I concluded as a young girl based on the circumstances around me that no one was explaining. But today I know better, that it is safe to speak, that
Mhm.
actually I'm called to speak, and my voice is a gift, and it doesn't have to be that way. And
Mhm.
so I had to really learn that, what were the belief systems that kept holding me back, that were not true.
Yeah. So but that must have been difficult. That must have been something that took time. I imagine that was not in 2 sessions that you got over that, because you held it in you for a long time. But um, this is so amazing, because you overcame that. I'm sure there are still days that that maybe something comes back or whatever. But you are a speaking coach, and you help women speaking with confidence, clarity, and impact. So your pull that you had to speak, that was really already a sign.
Absolutely.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I find that really inspiring.
Well, it's funny. I believe that the very place that God wants us to walk in the purpose, the enemy will try and come and hold us back, because he knows the power of when you and I walk in the fullness of our calling and our purpose, the impact it will have on the people around us. Because if we're called to do this, it is meant to impact the lives around us. And so the very place where we feel oppressed is probably the very place that we're meant to walk in, and stand with confidence, and pursue. And so as I began to realize, I've not been given a spirit of fear. That's not of who I am. That's not what I've been ordained to have as a Christian. And so I began to say, okay, if my voice is a gift that you've given me, because you think about this, Monique, you don't need to use your voice to talk to yourself, right?
No,
No, we
but
can speak inside our head.
and we do it a lot.
And we do it a lot. Our voice is meant to be heard by
Mm,
other people.
yeah.
And so I think, okay, if this is a gift that I've been given, then it's my responsibility to learn how to do it. The other thing I realize is this, that my voice is an instrument. It's like if I have a guitar and I really want to play a guitar, and if I just leave it in its case, it's not going to do any good. I'm not going to grow. No one's going to be impacted by it or influenced by it. It's my responsibility to learn how to use this instrument that God has given me to the fullest capacity. You know, there's a quote by John Maxwell. I don't know if you know who John Maxwell is.
Yes, of course.
Leadership guru, expert. I love John Maxwell. He has this quote about expanding your capacity in any area. And he says, first of all, you need to become aware. And then you need to take stock of the abilities or skills.
Mhm.
And then you need to make a choice. So
Yeah.
first of all, become aware. So I had to become aware of where I was being stopped in pursuing what God wanted me to do. And then I need to say, okay, what abilities do I have or skills? And what abilities and skills do I need to develop? And then I need to make a choice to actually do that in order to expand my capacity. And so that's kind of what happened for me in this journey. And yeah, it took a number of years. But as I was speaking, I would come face to face with, oh, okay, wow, okay, now I need to work on this. Or now I need to work on this. You know, it's kind of like people say practice makes perfect. It actually doesn't unless you're practicing the right habits.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to, as I went along, and I had a coach, I had a speaking coach working with me at some point later on to help me to refine, but also become concise, to develop the confidence I needed, and to know what really speaking was all about. Because I had a lot of things in my mind that needed to be shifted about what speaking was.
Okay. And when did you know that that you wanted to become an entrepreneur and help other people with that, or is that something that flew out automatically?
Flowed. That's a really good question. Flowed, yeah. So while I was a speech language pathologist, I started working on the side with some professionals who had come to Canada from other countries and had taken all the ESL that they could, but yeah, so English as a second language courses, but still felt like they were prejudiced against or hindered from going to the next level in promotion because they had a very strong accent.
Okay.
So I started working with them in accent reduction so that they would kind of neutralize or just become more understood. So that was kind of my first step into entrepreneurship, but it was very, very, very small. It didn't really happen until 2007. I actually, at that point, my kids were school age, and I was working. I had just finished a contract with a church. I was helping them to establish some systems in there. And I heard the Lord say to me that I want you to start your own business. And at that point, I'd never, ever thought about doing that. I was a life coach at that time. I had started training as a life coach. And so I started to set up my business in my home and started to do that. And the story turns out that 6 months later, my husband actually developed a brain tumor and passed away within 3 months.
Oh my God.
So here I am. I just started my own business, stopped working for who I was working for, had 3 young kids in school, had no income, and a widow, single mom, and grieving.
Yes.
And I said, Lord, okay, now what? And he said, just keep doing what I asked you to do, and I'll take care of the rest. I'll guide you. And so I had to trust God. And so as I began to, at that time, reach out, this was actually the first time that I started to hire business coach and people in the world. And at that time, we didn't have the virtual video like this. We had it was all by telephone seminar. So I started to, it was like a setup for me, because now I had the flexibility to be with my children, to walk through. I could set up my own hours as we grieved and we navigated, and all of the things that go along with loss. And but also I was learning to develop my own business and how to run a business. And I would have, at that time, I would meet with people in my home, in my office, to do life coaching, and as well as on a telephone.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of like my introduction. And then I had been speaking a lot at that point, like going around speaking at different conferences stuff, but I stopped for that reason, to be with my kids.
Mhm.
And so then I began to start to do more webinars, learn how to do that.
Mhm.
So fast forward, then eventually what ended up happening was that as people saw my way of speaking, and they began to ask me how to coach them.
Mhm. Okay.
And so I had a speaking coach who actually was the 1999 world champion of public speaking. His name is Craig Valentine. And he also developed a certification program for speaking coaches. So I got certified with him, and I eventually just stopped life coaching and just started just speaking coaching.
Wow, what a journey. And what how do I say that? These weren't even such little bumps. These were huge things in your life. And even I think most people already would have stopped after the first discovery with where the speaking problem came from. And then it happened with your husband. You have 3 small children. You start a business. You trust. How did you? Because everybody has his own way of thinking. One says it's God, another one says it's energy, another one says it's a higher power, higher self, or whatever. But how did you know that you trusted? How did you know that you? Because you heard that it was said to you, and then you needed to trust. That is sometimes a very hard part. How
Yeah,
did you do that?
that's a really good question, Monique, because the backdrop is that I had had years, decades before that, where I had journeyed along, where I had opportunities to trust God along the way,
Mhm.
in terms of even growing and healing from my past as a child. I didn't trust God when I first came to know him because of my experience with my dad.
Yeah.
It was an authority figure. So I had to learn that he was different, that the God of the Bible, the father that's talked about there, is different than an earthly father. So I had opportunities previously, decades along the way in my journey, where that trust was being built
Mhm,
different
mhm.
ways. So now I came to a place where, okay, I've never had to trust you for this in this way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look back in the track record
Mhm.
that I have with you, and that the ways that you have been faithful and come through when I did trust you. And I'm going to move forward believing that just like you came through in those times you were faithful, that you're going to come through in this.
That's a great idea, because I think that then you already have some proof, because that is often the difficulty. We don't have proof, but if you can also already see, okay, it did work there when I put my trust in there, so why should I do it again? Then it builds up more not confidence, but yeah, maybe so that, okay, I
Faith?
can trust
Yeah,
it. I builds up more faith. Yes, that is
yeah,
what I was looking for. Sorry, I'm looking for my words
it's
today.
okay.
It's too warm here. My brain is melting.
That's okay. I will
So
say this. Can I just add this as well on the
yes,
trust
of
factor?
course.
There's also the part about, again, as a Christian, I believe that the Bible is truth, right? So
Mhm.
if it says that this is who God is, then it's like that. When I talked about having to change my mindset, I had to choose to believe that, okay, this is true, and
Okay.
I can trust.
Okay, I understand. So then there was a huge pivot, I imagine, because you say you had your clients that came to you and on the phone. What changed with the internet? Did you see the opportunity immediately to go on the internet, or was it more that when COVID hit, for example, people couldn't maybe come to you again, that you had to shift, or were you already in that transition to working online?
Yeah, actually, I was already online. I had already transitioned because as I started from my home, as I mentioned, I had been And every year since then, I've hired coaches for different areas that I need to grow in. And so as I began to learn how to do the telephone coaching and teleseminar, I began to do a telephone, like a summit. My very first summit was all by telephone. It was an audio. And then eventually, as the internet began to open up and develop, I developed my business with that. So I actually was on the internet doing all the things we're doing right now before COVID. And so
That's wonderful, because sometimes that is difficult. Many companies had to pivot in 2019, 2020. Many companies, businesses went out of business because they couldn't pivot, they couldn't adapt. So, but now you are speaking to. Are you speaking to Kingdom Women, or are you creating Kingdom Women? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's a really good question. I started working with men and women in all sectors of society and different backgrounds. And just slowly over the years, I began to narrow my niche to work with kingdom women. And what I mean by that is Christian women, kingdom minded. So the kingdom of God, Christian mind. So the value system that they want to communicate. And so I'm developing them, but they already have a kingdom mindset. But now how to do that in terms of how to express that through their communication or the value system that they hold, how do they stand in that place and communicate the message that God has given them, whether they're in the media, in the marketplace, doesn't matter what it is. And so that's what that means.
So you coach them on better spreading the word about the Bible, or is it talking in general as a good Christian, or is that also wrong?
That's a very good distinction. If they want to spread the gospel through their message, I'll coach them on that. If they're talking about their business, they have a business that they're a wellness coach and they want to learn how to communicate that to their ideal audience, whoever their audience is, it doesn't matter. I coach them on that. So the difference is, it's like, I don't know, Monique, if you found this in your journey and your business, but we can't reach everyone. We're not called to work with everyone. And so for me, I found that over the years, I just found myself in a place where the ideal client for me was someone who had this value system, who were impact driven, who were women who knew that they're called to speak in some way, whether it be to grow their business, expand their influence, whatever it might be, that they had a growth mindset. So that is kind of the demographic that I work with. The message varies depending on what their mission is, business, ministry.
Because it is really important that you say that, because you cannot serve everybody. That's in business. There are people that could, Gandhi, Jesus, that they could serve everybody in a way. But we, as a business owner, you can't, because you're going to spread yourself through thin. So what you said is so important, that you niche down to a certain group of people, because it becomes so much easier to talk to them. Because if you have all kinds of people from all kinds of trades, then you have to have so many messages, and that's undoable. So I totally get that you niche that down. That is really. But when did you know that, or is that also something that came on as a logical consequence?
Well, it was kind of something that I wrestled with for many years beforehand, as I coached different individuals. I worked with men and women. And so I just, over the years, found myself, and it was scary. It was scary to then say, okay, I'm not going to work with, for example, I work really well with men as well. And I'm like, okay. And men sometimes come to me and say, can I get coached by you? So, well, so
it's difficult, because you think that can be income, but it's going to.
It divides you, right? And in terms of that, and it's like, where can I show up the most, and where am I most passionate? Like, even going back to Jesus, he actually it says that he wasn't called to everyone.
No.
He wasn't called to reach everyone. He called with a very specific purpose. So he even had a niche that he
Yeah.
was reaching. He called to the lost children of Israel. And it was those people that he reached, then went on to reach other people.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's
Right.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, I just, it was over time that I wrestled with it, and I had to really say, okay, am I operating in integrity? If I go and I work with this person, I come back drained and exhausted. Why is that? Probably because my heart is not really in helping this person promote this, or working with this kind of individual, whether it be their personality or whatever it is. Sometimes you feel like you're dragging someone, or I'm not there to change their mindset about certain things, right? They have to be convinced that they're excuse me, you take a drink of water.
Yes, of course.
So I just began to become aware of how I was feeling with certain individuals.
Yeah. So that was the experience. But so you can drink your water a little bit. We are almost we are in the last part of this conversation. The time flies. But these conversations are all for inspiring women that already are in business, or maybe thinking about starting a business, or are just looking for change, no matter what way. You have gone through a wonderful but a difficult journey, and there are more women out there that had an abusive father, or an alcoholic mother or father, or other things in their life. What would you say if you have a woman in front of you that is thinking, okay, Elisa, you can do this, but I am not able to do that? What would you say to help her, to inspire her, to maybe reach out to you or to somebody else, or to read the book, or to watch some YouTube videos? What would you tell her?
Well, first of all, that everybody is called to speak in some capacity. One of the belief systems that I had to shift was that speaking was not so much about talent, but was about skill development. In fact, the research shows that the factors that contribute to the most effectiveness of a speaker is only 10% talent and 90% skill development. So if you, as a woman listening today, if you have a growth mindset, if you're willing to learn and you're coachable, you can actually become a great communicator. And I'm a living testimony of that, because I was deathly afraid. But I had to realize that if I was willing to develop the skills and master those skills, and learn how to do that in a way so that I became authentic in my speaking, then you can overcome those challenges. You can become a communicator that has an impact. So that would be the first thing that I would say. The second thing is confidence, is really helping to develop the confidence, because confidence is the listener perceives whether or not you're confident by three factors. There's three things, and I call them my 3V framework: the verbal, the vocal, and the visual. And so looking at it from an in-person or an online, those three factors send a message to your listener as to whether or not you're confident or credible. So take the time, record yourself, and look at how you're showing up, what you sound like. Ask yourself, do you like your voice? If you don't, say why. Do you believe in the message that you're communicating? And really, really help build the confidence so that you show up confident. And in turn, you can, what I call, tilt the odds in your favor, where the perception of your listener is now seeing you as confident and credible. And we know that if someone doesn't see you as confident and credible, they're not going to listen very long.
Yeah.
Right?
That is the truth. And those are great tips, because skills can be learned, and then those skills give you confidence.
Exactly. As you develop them, you develop more confidence. Even frameworks. If you develop frameworks, for example, putting together your message, That's another thing that I teach my clients is giving them a structure that's flexible, but yet it's a guide. When you have that, it's kind of like learning to drive a car. First of all, it's like, whoa, there's so many things I need to think about. It's like, you don't feel confident. But as you learn, it just becomes second nature after a while.
Yes.
But there is a way, there's a system of doing it, a structure that
Yeah.
you have, a guideline. And then you develop the confidence because now you know, okay, yeah, I know how to do this. And then you develop your own style after that.
But you also, and I'm happy that I can share this with the audience. You also have 7 power words. Is that a document, or is that that's something that you want to share with the audience? Tell us a little bit more about that. 7powerwords.com.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Those 3 V's. There's the verbal, vocal, and visual. Most people don't realize that the words that you say actually have the least influence in your audience's perception of you. Okay, I'll just put it right there. But the words do matter. So a lot of women speakers struggle with how do I speak in such a way that motivates my audience, or even invites them to work with me. Say I'm a coach, or I'm selling a product or something like that. They don't want to sound salesy. They want to be authentic.
Yes.
And so how do I do that? Because they realize that speaking is actually the number one way to promote your brand, your business, just like you're doing, Monique. You are creating visibility. So how do I do that in a way where I want to grow my business? So these 7 power words is a mini course, and it gives you 7 power words to use. And I actually give you a video training on how to use them in your message.
Wow. I'm going to put it in the comments, so you only have to click on it, and you can go to this amazing tool. So Lisa, we are at the end, all over the end, but I didn't want to finish it too soon. You have such an amazing story and way of telling us this. If people would want to reach out to you, where can they find you best? Where can they best reach out to you?
Well, they can reach out to me on 𝗙𝗏.tv, which is my YouTube channel, or you can also go to lisavanderkwaak.com. You can see my name spelling there and find out more about me through that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I put your link already in the description. I will put the tool under it and your 𝗙𝗏 TV. Thank you for being on this episode. Is there some last words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, first of all, thank you, Monique, for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure to meet you and to be with your audience. And I just want to encourage, if you're listening to the replay or live right now, that your voice is an instrument of transformation, and it's meant to be heard. The message that you have is important, and no one else can say it. And so I want to encourage you to really take some time and to clarify that and get your message out there.
Ladies, Lisa Vanderkwaak, thank you for this amazing talk, and let's talk soon to catch up a little bit, because I'm really looking forward what is going to bring in the next year for you. That must be amazing. Thank you, Lisa, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.
So, ladies, wasn't she amazing? I learned a lot again, and I'm always not astonished, because ladypreneurs tend to be very generous with their time and with the message that they bring out. So I'm always really very grateful for it. So what Lisa said is the 3 V's: verbal, vocal, and visual. That is very important for your business. Your skills, the skills can be learned. It builds up your confidence. The 7 words that you can use, the 7 power words to use in your business, so you don't come across as being salesy. So I'm going to put in the website in the show notes or in the description, so you can click on it and you can check them out. But if you have questions for Lisa, then please reach out to her on Facebook or on YouTube, so she can help you out. For now, I wish you an amazing day. We will meet again on Monday for a live training, and the fun part is that next week I also have 2 Lisas. Lisas. On Wednesday, I have Lisa Hannigan, and on Friday, Lisa Billingham. So I'm looking forward to those conversations also. For now, have an amazing rest of your Friday and already an amazing weekend. Take care and stay healthy. Bye-bye.